Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the world at astronews.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Association of Ghana Industries calls for the immediate removal of the 1 cedi fuel levy, warning the policy continues to significantly affect operational costs for businesses. Also on the program this afternoon, computerized school selection and placement system comes under scrutiny following the Education Ministry's decision to review the mode of application to senior high schools. Much later on the program, we also live at the Pediase Lodge, where President John Mahama is holding a high-stake bilateral meeting with visiting Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Beatrice Adu. The Association of Ghana Industries is calling for the immediate cancellation of the 1 cedi fuel levy, warning that the policy is significantly increasing operational costs for businesses. The association says that the situation has been worsened by the recent surge in global fuel prices, partly linked to the US-Israel-Iran war. Now, at a high-level meeting with the minority on Wednesday, AGI President Kofi Nsiampoku cautioned that if the levy remains in place, many businesses may have no option but to pass on the rising cost to consumers through increased prices of goods and services. Meanwhile, former AGI President Dr. Humphrey Ayim-Dake emphasized the need for a thorough evaluation of the levy's original purpose and its outcomes before any final decision is made.
Diesel is about over 16 now, 16, 17. So it is important that at this point we start talking about removal of the 1 cedi to bring our cost of operations down. At that point, we could absorb because we had to balance it with the appreciation of the cedi. But if nothing is done about it now, then we will also begin to look at our operational costs to start increasing prices, which we do not want to touch. We do not want a situation where the impact of the cedi will now be balanced by fuel prices, and therefore we come back to square one.
The intent of the 1 cedi, as you passed in Parliament, was on two fronts. One, to support fuel purchases for generation of power. Second was to deal with the legacy debts. Am I correct? Granted that is the case, in the computation of tariffs, we know there are fuel in the formula. What sort of fuel are we using in the computation of tariffs? So what have you accumulated in the 1 cedi? What has it been used for? Have you met it? If you met it, then you can advocate for the scrapping of the 1 cedi. If you haven't, what are the timelines? Then it becomes scientific, the intent and the achievement.
It's quite challenging when we have strategic stocks that we import, because for me that is capital flight. I think we need a situation where we can refine our own oil for our strategic stocks, if for nothing at all, because we are spending money to bring in fuel to put aside for times when we face difficulties. So what do we have oil in this country for? We could even still keep whatever government has put on there if we have good strategic stocks.
And he had the former AGI President Dr. Humphrey Ayim-Dake. Christian Yale is a man who is monitoring this meeting. He joins us live on the phone. Chris, what other concerns came up during this meeting with the AGI and the minority?
Yeah, so the minority over the past week, and this is something they even started earlier, they have been meeting strategic partners and stakeholders and key, agencies. The understanding we have from the minority leader is that it is a directive that has been given them by the NPP flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, so that they are able to factor the recommendations and the concerns that these stakeholders share with them into the NPP policy direction for 2028. They see this helping to enhance their chances for the 2028 elections. And yesterday, during that meeting with the Association of Ghana Industries, one concern that AGI raised was the what they call the non-effect stakeholder consultations. They specifically spoke about the new VAT reforms, the new law which Parliament has passed, and the fact that when you look at the takeaway of the flat rate and the new regime, it is making business operations gradually difficult. And they are of the view that although there were some stakeholders met, the stakeholder engagement could be effective. In fact, they are even asking for possible law to look at what they call effective stakeholder consultations. Now, this what transpired, the Deputy Minority Leader, Beatrice Adu, is saying that they are going to form a working group that will be working with some of these stakeholders off camera so that they are able to implement or, harmonize all of these concerns. She says the minority, and as a matter of fact, the NPP has noted their mistakes from the past and they are going to make things better in the 2028 elections. We can listen to her talk about that.
We have listened to you and have put down the necessary recommendations that we need to take on board. What we are going to follow this particular engagement with is to come up with a working group. And that working group will be working outside the camera where we can have a very effective engagement and come up with solutions. And then to us as a ready governance group to ensure that the mistakes that we committed, we are going to challenge ourselves to amend all those mistakes, come on board with you and ensure that we will come back to power and begin to work well with you.
And you have Patrice Adu. We still do have Christian Yali on the line with us. Chris, any other thing that came up and what next we should expect? Hello, Christian Yali. Looks like we've lost him on the line. But Christian Yali is our parliamentary affairs correspondent, bringing us an update as regards the meeting between the minority and the Association of Ghana Industries. Now, in the wake of increased fuel prices due to the US-Iran war, Israel war, some drivers are calling for an increase in transport fares. These drivers at the Circle New Plant Station say they cannot even break even because of a myriad of work costs. They spoke with my colleague Grace Hamwajiman.
We know that you are a driver in this lorry terminal. Talk to us the increment in fuel prices. How are you receiving it?
Yeah, Pacho Yatum. It's a fuel in fact, yeah, Brepa Obaya Juma Pon, who is carrying Abeto fuel. Cafes, Nikefria Kokumase, Kautimito fuel, 30 liters, Utimito 25 liters, 80 minutes Kokumase. But you say, even 40 liters, Kautimito from Kokumase. Ultimate from Kokumase. Obakon crab, ice water 35 liters. They say, in fact, you have money.
Fuel on answer call for my and drop in a bathroom.
But your uncle from and you're not a bathroom. That be fuel no 50 last 2 weeks now baby Jano still a one and that's yesterday. That's with Jana. On say, I never could say, you move your fuel, you told the good come. To say me say, me sell na me meto. It says sell and then I'm I think it's a 15 plus. And I'm got to fuel meto 45 liters. And then I'm almost 5 something. Oh, 500 cities, yeah, 5 something. Because me and I think it's 15 points. 15 points. Oh, me and I'm 5 something. And you're fine. Obey you my pono. Go call your loadua 100 cities in mine. It's emergency water fuel 40 liters. I would call. Upon Unyashi and two butum. Tia Pacho, Abanonia be found mine.
And also, I'm about to lawyer firm one.
Say see about to from us and to the from another mean to me and can once because me phone. Me said I name there, but some come to my can be Japan because yeah, bre. Ubaya Juma Pona is getting out of fuel. Unya one silk day and found to honor. Meme to me guess me guess me. I'm
and yeah, who now the Fadia show girls so.
And no dear mum, but Aja Jobia, ya did you own? I also unya so when you saw him quite or chop on will be bottom. Semika Semiga, and yes, I'm in Pramfo.
Wait, Johnny. So let's speak to this man also. Pacho, have you heard about the fuel price increment when you went to the fuel pumps? Did you experience the same thing?
And fuel price, you know, mobile to me anti in Cambia, but I think that was Tuesday. And who say fuel price on our cost Roma tomato once. It's a bonus and a hauka crabba. By any now to him say every US want to Huna or Muyano and a bar and in our basa. And secondly, so and can say you to a lot of him. But young penny for so and young cafe, into to me for your pet and fun too. By a train and penny for back canoe. And now you be this so. Juma.
Now see, I take your fuel prices. So you anticipate more to lorry first.
Maybe I so that fuel price in this also a above from no. Obeka ya tete so. Yeah, that was last year. Says that by price in this adiba last year. And yet full price in also once. And since then na after na yeah sure say be a baby and I say baby. And a spare part also na air cost almost instead of say almost so man almost after no almost two. Okones okoto ebia okoto voxi hunyama obekonu excavator nema na atiso yentu mi koto excavator nema for embefixe voxi and almost so matiso so obekonu na excavator nema no matiso.
And it means that yet if you on so crowd you mo nema for framo chance amo dia tolori fair nim
dem din na na ekabum nin na na ekabum edetiso and I say editum there be say bakuba from my hwɛ do na abɔ from no and e de tiso na ya san hwɛ do na akɔsoro no na de atum by say o hwɛ for listen akɔsoro na automatically say atum
and na wuto obi no amo dem out saying
and then me nyan kɔtɔ da but me to endra Wednesday and me furu Kumasi back ra na me car tank no the half na gauge need a half but could you believe say me to 525 cedis and sign yama at the half tank that imagine say at that low tank. Let's imagine how I do metal.
First now how better say answer when you're full.
Oh, first me find say at that half tank and you say my to be like 300 cedis. Now yama. But I say half tank by me to 525 cedis. I will go oil. I will go to match oil with me to so I will just so. Oh.
You've been hearing some of these drivers. They tell me that, yes, they know fuel prices have increased. They are also looking forward to communication from the leadership of their unions on whether they should increase prices of transport fares or not.
Grace Hamuajima brought us that report from Circle, the new plan station there. The government of Ghana has welcomed Burkina Faso's decision to lift its suspension on fresh tomato exports, a move expected to ease supply pressures and stabilize prices on the local market. Burkina Faso imposed the ban on the 19th of March as it shifted focus on boosting supplies for local processing, a decision that disrupted exports to Ghana and triggered price increases. In a statement issued today, the Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry described the reversal as the result of sustained bilateral engagement between the two countries. The ministry said that talks between Trade Minister Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare and her Burkinabe counterpart held on the sidelines of the WTO's 14th Ministerial Conference in Yaoundé, Cameroon, were instrumental in lifting the restriction. Government assured the public of continued collaboration with Burkina Faso and local stakeholders to maintain a stable and mutually beneficial trading environment. It also noted that the efforts to strengthen Ghana's domestic tomato value chain are ongoing. Initiatives such as Feed the Industry and Feed Ghana aim to boost production, improve yield and ensure a more reliable supply. The ministry added that irrigation projects and large-scale land allocation are being rolled out to support year-round cultivation and strengthen linkages between farmers and processors. It further urged traders and industry players to support measures aimed at protecting consumers while safeguarding local processing. The government says these efforts form part of a broader strategy to build resilience in the agricultural sector and promote sustainable development. Now, concerns are emerging this afternoon over the government's decision to allow Basic Education Certificate Examination BEC candidates to select their senior high schools only after the release of their results. Education Minister Haruna Iddrisu earlier announced the policy shift, explaining that it replaces the long-standing system where students chose their preferred schools before sitting for the exams, often without a clear indication of their likely performance. Now, under the new arrangement, candidates will be given a mandatory 1-week window after results are released to make their selections based on their actual aggregate. While the ministry says the move will promote more informed decision-making and improve placement outcomes, some stakeholders are raising concerns about possible delays in the placement process, logistical challenges, and the pressure on candidates to make critical choices within a limited time frame. First, let's listen to the Education Minister Haruna Iddrisu give us a bit more on this new direction.
In the last couple of months, a number of students have graduated from our colleges of education and other institutions of higher learning that specializes in the development of teachers. I am happy to note and announce that the Ministry of Education has received clearance and approval from the Ministry of Finance for the recruitment of teachers across the country. We will be recruiting at least 7,000 teachers.
And you had the Education Minister Haruna Iddrisu. Educationist Dr. Peter Enti believes the decision to overhaul school placement is in the right order.
It would be naive for anybody to suggest that this would be the solution to the challenges of the computer placement system. No. The challenges are multifaceted. You can look at it from so many angles. What this is going to do is to help minimize the challenges that the parents and students face. For example, we know that students select schools before they see their performance. Now, if you are given an opportunity to edit your selection after you've seen your results, one week window, it gives you a lot of room for you to now reflect on the schools that you've selected and then ensure that your selection is in line.
And you heard the educationist Dr. Peter Enti. He's also the Executive Secretary of IFES. Let's speak to Ralph Kofi Gapson, who is General Secretary, National Council for PTAs. Good afternoon to you, sir. It's great to have you in studio.
Good to have you, Beatrice.
You join us on Agenda today. You're on Shri FM 92.7. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure for always having me.
Let me first get your thoughts on this new direction in terms of our senior high school placement.
First of all, thank you. I think that it's a step in the right direction. Looking at almost for over 2 decades, we've always practiced one system, and over the period, the nagging questions and the operational challenges keeps on compounding. So if government, as part of its resetting agenda or as part of trying to bring in reforms, thinks that this is the way to go, I think that it was a very thorough work done, and then they thought through it well, and then they've come out with this. We only hope and pray that as it's being rolled out, if there are genuine challenges that comes with it, we'll be able to fix it, because if the system is not broken, it cannot be fixed. And we all agree as a country that the current system is broken. But the challenges with it is not only has to do with the placement, but preparing the child and psychologically psyching him up to admit that wherever he is going to get quality secondary education, the quality of the education and then the level of preparing the child for tertiary education will not be different from a child who will be going to Achimota, a child will be going to any of the category A schools. You know, we've always kept on insisting that even categorizing the schools itself is a big problem that we are having as a country. Why should we create an impression that this school is better than that other school? So also hearing the minister, and as part of trying to have a holistic approach in resolving these things. They also spoke to policy issues about building upon the infrastructure space and then enhancing the space and making sure that the rural schools or schools that are found in rural communities are also given the necessary upgradement. For instance, if you want rural communities in Ghana, for instance, the entire 5 northern regions, part of the Bono East regions and part of the OT regions, when you put them together, and the part of Western and Western North, these are actually the areas that needs a lot of support and collaboration. So
indeed, and that's why some people say that the 1 week window given them to do this may not be enough because of those who find themselves in rural areas.
Because the process is not done when the results comes out. What was happening in the previous system was that there was no window of opportunity for you to go into the system and edit it to suit where you wanted to go. But what they are saying now is that we all as parents, we have the opportunity. My daughter will be writing this year BEC. So I have an opportunity to choose. But that choice is not cast in stone. It can be validated or I can re-edit it within the 1 week space. By that time, I've done a lot of sober reflections. And the child too, based on the results that has come, will be able to know whether, the choices that we chose, maybe we have the opportunity to go there or we need to review it and probably update it to suit the status quo. So let's work within the 1 week space. Ghanaians, as we are, we know that we are very meticulous and we are very passionate about our children's education. So I'll urge all of us that let's work within the 1 week space, because the more weeks we create, it means that the children will also lag behind in terms of having access to school early and be able to prepare them for the next phase of their education.
What practical measures would you expect the government to put in place to ensure this is as effective as possible, even though it is starting?
3 things. First of all, government must move beyond this statement of policy. Sometimes when you are announcing a policy, they say you should have come with a document. We should have seen the blueprint, so that whatever our anxieties and frustrations are, we are speaking to details of documentations. That is a challenge, and I think that government must quickly make sure that the blueprint for this rollout is out there, and also a lot of education and sensitization. We should not do the usual education and sensitization we've been doing with the old system. We should make sure that all the stakeholders who are needed, including us as the PTAs, we are the consumers of educational knowledge. So when you are doing some of these things and we are not properly in line with the discussions, and we come here to rather speak to government policy decisions, which we are not part of, probably the people who reviewed it, and even though we've been speaking and we know that they've been picking some, but they need to sit with us on the table as we are having a discussion to have a frank conversation to look at it. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that the upgradement of the category B and the C schools. We hope and pray that the needed infrastructure and operational logistics and also the human resource capacity of teachers in these particular schools are actually taken to the next level, because definitely we need to put people together so they can share ideas so that we can see how best we can go. The third one has to do with the teacher rationalization of teachers. Most of these rural communities or schools in this space, both at the basic level and at the secondary level, you see that the one teacher handling maybe 4 or 5 classrooms is not the best. So I'm happy government has announced publicly that this time the 7,000 teachers that they are going to give opportunity for recruitment, they will give more space for less endowed communities or the rural communities. I think when they do this and they do most of the opportunities for basic schools, if they can do basic schools about 4,000, and they can do secondary schools, the 3,000, they can do categorization of maybe the schools, the normal secondary schools, and then the TVET maybe some 1,000. I think when they're able to bring this straight together, and we're able to work on the numbers and deal with the opportunities as teachers who are prepared to stay in the community, not just to go there and after working they leave. We need teachers who have to stay in that community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kofi Gabson Raphael, who is the General Secretary, National Council for PTAs. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your thoughts with us. Now, the National Association of Sachet and Packaged Water Producers has announced an increase in the price of sachet water effective Monday, the 6th of April 2026. In a statement issued today, the association explained that a global shortage of polymers coupled with rising production costs linked to the ongoing conflict in Iran has forced manufacturers to adjust prices. The association says the situation has made it increasingly difficult for producers to maintain existing prices without compromising operations. Under the new pricing structure, Ex-factory price is set at 8 cedis per bag of 30 sachets. That's 500 ml. Also, ex-truck price is 10 cedis per bag of 30 sachet, and maximum retail price is 15 cedis per bag of 30 sachet. The association urged retailers and consumers to comply with the revised prices to promote fairness across the market. Now, speaking to 3FM Sunrise, the National Director of Corporate Affairs for the National Association of Sachet and Packaged Water Producers, Kwame Ejapon Intra, argued that the adjustment is necessary to sustain production and ensure the continuous supply of safe drinking water to the public. Now, the decision by the Economic and Organized Crime Organization to investigate the Volta region's representative on the Council of State, Gabriel Tanko Kwamega Tokple, has sparked public outrage among a section of residents of the region. Ioko, in a letter this week, it says that it's investigating the businessman for alleged gold fraud and money laundering, and went ahead to declare him wanted. Hopefully, we'll be speaking to our correspondent Faisal Idrisu, but let's hear the presiding member for the Central Tong area.
Communications appear to unfairly tarnish the reputation of a distinguished statesman and a dedicated public servant. We note with serious concern Yoko's apparent disregard for the ruling delivered on 9th March 2026 by the High Court in Adenta, Accra. The conference underscores that respect for judicial authority is fundamental to the rule of law and democratic governance. Our knowledge of this authentic background, one grounded in respect for the rule of law, a deep sense of humanity, and the trust reposed in him by the people of the Volta region. We will not allow anyone to tarnish his hard-earned image or undermine the dignity of the office he occupies.
And you have a council member of, presiding member of Central Tong, and we'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins. You're still here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Stay with us.
Accra, Ghana.
So here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Now, MPP's route worked against cocoa sector. That's what Asiedun Katia, the national chairman of the governing NDC, is claiming. Johnson Asiedun Katia has taken a swipe at the opposition MPP for criticizing the government over the reduced cocoa farm gate price. And we'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us on the Midday News today on 3FM 92.7. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Coming up next is Business Daily with Bismarck Awusa.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming out this afternoon, Ghana Revenue Authority cracks down on tax evasion as multiple businesses in Accra and Tema cited for non-compliance. Also ahead, government targets 4.673 billion cedis in treasury bill auction today amid previous undersubscriptions. Meanwhile, government secures 3.1 billion cedis in 7-year bond auction following domestic debt exchange program. I am Bismarck. I will bring you details of our headline stories and others shortly. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. The Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, has intensified its nationwide enforcement drive from April 1, 2026, targeting major commercial hubs in East Legon, Spintex, and Tema to plug critical revenue leakages. The exercise, which focused on VAT compliance, resulted in several businesses being cited for various infractions and 2 establishments being sealed off.
The Ghana Revenue Authority enforcement team, led by the Assistant Commissioner in charge of the Accra Area Enforcement, Joseph Annan, began the day's operation in East Legon. Seoul Restaurant was cited for issuing computer-generated invoices without the required special dispensation from the Ghana Revenue Authority. The establishment was also flagged for failing to remit VAT payment and for under-declaration of revenue. Janelle Space was found to be charging customers VAT despite not being registered with the authority, a direct violation of tax laws. The operation moved to the Spintex Road Industrial and Commercial Belt, where Resen Industry Limited was caught in the selective issuance of VAT invoices. In Tema, the Ghana Revenue Authority officers visited Shangshang, where the business was cited for total non-issuance of VAT invoices.
Start with Seoul Restaurant. Their own declarations they are not paying. So the only way out is to seal them off because revenue is at risk. So that is exactly what we've done. We've invited them to the office. Once they are able to clear most of their liability, we'll open it up for them. But as it is now, we are not getting anything from them. So why should you allow it to operate when revenue is at risk? Janelle, for them, we don't even have them on our system. So for them, of course, you saw the place. We have sealed, but we couldn't even use the padlock. We just use the commissioners. But that one is we even weightier than the padlocks. So, but when we have invited them, so we expect them to come over.
Assistant Commissioner in charge of the Accra Area Enforcement, Joseph Annan, hinted of possible prosecution.
In fact, we have to start prosecuting some of them. Because how can you come to somebody's country and you are doing business and you are not registered? It's a crime. And these things we have to stop. It's not helping us. And our own people are protecting some of these people because I believe those places, people know what they are doing and they fail to report them.
The authority maintains that the deployment of its enforcement team will continue indefinitely until high levels of compliance are achieved across all sectors.
And that was a report on Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, cracking down on tax evasion as multiple businesses in Accra and Tema are cited for non-compliance. Moving on, government is set to return to the domestic market on Thursday, April 2, with a target of 4.673 billion cedis through its weekly treasury bill auction. This high-stakes auction is being closely watched by market analysts as it follows 2 consecutive weeks of undersubscription, signaling a potential tightening of liquidity or a shift in investor sentiment within the domestic fixed income market. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report.
In the previous 2 auctions, government failed to meet its borrowing targets, a departure from the oversubscription trend that that characterized much of the first quarter of 2026. With inflation recently dropping to a historic low of 3.2%, investors are weighing whether the Bank of Ghana will further cut the policy rate, potentially lowering the yields on future T-bill issuances. A slight recovery in the private sector and increased lending activity may be diverting some institutional capital away from government paper. Large corporate tax obligations and end-of-quarter financial adjustments often impact the volume of available cheap capital in the banking system. The upcoming auction will feature the standard 91-day, 182-day, and 364-day tenures. While government remains committed to its debt management strategy, the pressure to meet the 4.673 billion cedis target is significant, as these funds are critical for refinancing maturing debt and supporting the national budget. The success of these auctions is also vital for the stability of the cedi. A fully subscribed auction reduces the need for the central bank to provide direct financing to the government, a key requirement under the current IMF-supported program. Despite the recent undersubscriptions, the broader macroeconomic environment remains stable, supported by the 15th consecutive month of disinflation.
And that was a 3 Business Newsdesk report on government targeting 4.673 billion cedis in T-bill auction today amid previous undersubscriptions. Meanwhile, government has secured 3.1 billion cedis in bids from investors in its first 7-year cedi-denominated bond auction following the Domestic Debt Exchange Program (DDEP). Based on the summary issuance report, bids, authorities also agreed to pay a coupon rate of 12.5% on the bond, which matures on March 29, 2033. Analysts and industry watchers describe the outcome as favorable and reflective of current market conditions. This is still Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausat.